Now, our first guest is one of our most beloved and respected actors, playing, amongst other things, EastEnders Patrick Truman for 23 years. Now, as fans know, Patrick is famous for his love of rum, a flutter on the horses, and, of course, his one and only Yolande.
I approached you, remember? I asked you for a dance. I don't want to be a different person, Patrick. I like who I
am. Hey, man, it's Rudolph Walker. Oh, Rudolph, you are such a dude, aren't you? Look at you.
Am I?
Yes, you are.
I'm just trying to keep up with you all, that's all.
Oh, wow. But listen, this is a tough storyline that you've been doing on EastEnders.
Very much so, and it's something that's happening and it needed to be highlighted. You know, there's so many women of that generation that it's been brushed under the carpet and have been suffering. So the feedback has been just tremendous.
Has it?
Fantastic.
Yeah.
It's been fantastic. And hats off to the producer for EastEnders for bringing something like that to the forefront.
Yes, very important.
Absolutely. It is.
Rudolph, am I right in saying that you were hesitant to even join EastEnders in the first place? And 23 years.
Yep, I went in for 6 months and here I am 23 years on, and I'm enjoying every minute of it. No, back then, because my career has been a variety of things, you know, working in the theatre, doing films, television, which was great, you know, they say variety is the spice of life.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So when I was approached to join it, I thought, do I really want to be tied down for any length of time? But, of course, my children and my agent said, you're crazy. You get in there and no regrets whatsoever.
Yeah. Fantastic.
It's been great.
But another venture, you have your book out called Walking with Dignity. And I know there's been several occasions that you've been asked to write a book and you have decided, you know, now is the time. Tell us a little bit about the thinking behind the title, because it's to your mum and kind of the women in your life, really, that have inspired it.
Yep, I mean, I was brought up by my mother, a single-parent family, and she was tough. I mean, she was as tough as nails. I mean, very Victorian in her outlook, whatever that is, and that I got a lot of licks, you know. You cry, she hit you. You stop crying, she said, you're too hard, you can't feel, so she hit you again. But what she wanted was the best for me. As a single parent, and at the time, the only child. I had 2 younger sisters. But my mother, although I would say I came from a very, very poor family, all my relatives, you know, some of them had money, but, you know, my mother struggled. And you only appreciate it, and you're aware of it a long time after, the sacrifices that she made. But there was something about her, in spite of all that, there was a dignity. A dignity that was second to none.
Proud.
Very, very proud. But I was also surrounded by, for instance, an aunt of mine, who married to my uncle, and she was a tiny lady, and what we call in Trinidad, a Trinidad white. You know, she was very, very clear, you know, lady. But once again, tiny, but she too walked with a tremendous, you know, there's the dignity about her. Another aunt who was abused by an uncle of mine, and I mean physically and mentally abused. And as a little child growing up, it's something that I didn't appreciate, I didn't like. I tried talking to my uncle at one stage, very scared, because I know, you know, he's the one who would turn around and give me a good hiding for even talking about that. But once again, she had a dignity that was, again, second to none.
You talk about growing up when you were younger and all these influences in your life. You grew up with a name until you were a teenager that you only discovered wasn't your first birth name until you were a teenager.
Yes, and just before I was about to travel and had to get a passport, and I realised I'm called Rudolph as well. So it's Rudolph Malcolm Walker.
But you grew up being called Malcolm.
Oh, yes.
So you always thought that was your name, Malcolm?
I always thought that was my name. And the thing is that when I Love Thy Neighbor was being shown in Trinidad, and, you know, I made the headlines and friends looked at it and came on Rudolph Walker starring Rudolph Walker. I'm not here, Rudolph, that is Malcolm!
That's our Malcolm.
That's Malcolm, yeah.
So that was your journey over to the UK that you had to get the passport for.
That's right.
And you found a lot of adversities when you first reached the UK. You mentioned about colorism, which was an interesting concept. I'd never sort of really wrapped my head around that you kind of dealt with and kind of got used to growing up. But then racism, of course, is something that you're still very to the heart trying to eradicate to this day.
Yes, because it's growing up. Yes, I talk about colorism because there was no such thing, you know, growing up as racism. You're lighter shade, you got a better job, and that's the way it was. But on the boat coming here, you realize that there's racism because all the white people were up above looking down on us, and all the black guys were down there. But we dealt with it insofar that we put on a show. You know, we got together, we played instruments, and they realized that all the fun was down here.
Yes, there you go.
And they came down and they joined us. And
The beauty of music, it does bring people together, doesn't it?
music, poetry, and
The arts.
that's what the arts. And yeah, but there are different, you know, there are different ways of handling racism, which really has proved in Love Thy Neighbor the stupidity of it. And I still hold that statement that, you know, the title of that series, Love Thy Neighbor. And it is something that, to me, it is still so powerful. And that is how I live my life.
Rudolph, listen, before we sadly have to let you go, I just wanted to show you something. I'm thinking that you may not have seen this because one of the things that you appeared in when, you know, early days, I think we're talking 1969, it was Doctor Who. Don't worry, it's not going to be anything terrible. It was a good thing. But they have colorised the old black and white episodes.
I like that phrase,
I know.
colorised.
A different kind of colorising, I'm glad to say. And the new episode will be the 23rd of December on BBC 4 and iPlayer. And here it is. And I think we're going to see young Malcolm or Rudolph.
I'll get some water. Hey, look! Run for it! Where to? Well, due north, open down.
There you are.
Wow.
Brilliant. That's amazing.
There you go. You've had a long and distinguished career, which is going to continue, I'm sure. And the book is out now, Walking with Dignity. And thanks for speaking so beautifully about your female relatives. It was really lovely.
Bless.
Rudolph.